More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants, including the $155 Walmart Plus monthly membership credit and $240 flexible business credit. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
This episode is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' The Amateur. When his wife is murdered, Charlie Heller, the CIA's most brilliant computer analyst, must trek across the globe and use his only weapon, his intelligence, to hunt down her killers and enact revenge. Starring Academy Award winner Rami Malek and Academy Award nominee Lawrence Fishburne. The Amateur. Rated PG-13. Only in theaters April 11th.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode number, I don't know. I don't remember.
712.
Thank you. 712 of the DBR podcast. Why do we count, Donald? Why do we have regular episodes. We have DBR Bites. We have emergency podcasts where I don't even put a number on them. I don't know why we count.
Yeah, I think you messed yourself up by the last couple of emergency pods not throwing numbers on there. We count around here, Jason. At least we try.
Oh, it's a mess. It's well over 800 episodes. Probably more like 850 or so if you count Return to Glory. Am I ever going to fucking finish Return to Glory? I don't know.
No, because if we win in 2 more games, then there will be glory. So
glory will be now. Exactly. Oh my God. In any event, Donald and I are here. I'm Jason. He's Donald. You know our names by now. After 850 plus episodes, a decade into the DBR podcast, we are here to give you the long version of last night's episode, where we briefly recapped Duke's win over the Alabama Crimson Tide to send the Blue Devils to yet another Final Four. Donald, I understand you are going to attempt to make it to San Antonio. I am not. I was in New Orleans a few years ago for that heartbreaking, heart-wrenching loss to Carolina. I'm not going to jinx Duke by showing up for the Final Four again this time. I will let you have the glory.
Well, I have a flight. I'm working on tickets. As you know, I have a couple irons in the fire for that. I don't have a rental car. I don't have a hotel. Right now, I just have vibes. Thank you to, I forgot who it is, who offered his rickshaw for me. I have to get a rickshaw.
It was Alex Ward. His name is Alex Ward. Yes. He sent us a photo of his rickshaw, and he said, start pedaling now. It's slow.
Well, I now have to find a rickshaw to get to his rickshaw. So I don't know, Alex, if it's going to work, but I definitely appreciate the gesture of the rickshaw. I do have a flight. We said, Jason, we will start with the air travel first. That's a lot quicker. I'm flying into and out of Austin because flying in directly into San Antonio is super expensive. But here we are. It's gonna be a fun week, Jason. A lot of content. The women, first of all, you talked about the demons of 2022 and losing to UNC. Well, the women took care of that a couple days ago. They beat UNC in the Sweet 16. They play in what, an hour and a half as we record. So we will talk about that game against South Carolina. They could also be booking a trip to a Final Four this afternoon. So go do it, women. Let's make it 2 for 2.
It is a really good time to be a Duke fan.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you mentioned we mentioned Alex Ward and his rickshaw, and we're going to get to the emails. It will come as no surprise to say that the DBR podcast at gmail.com inbox blew up last night. Donald, by the time you and I were done recording our instant reaction, I checked my email and we had over 50 headlines already. By the time I really looked at them this morning, it was over 100. It was a lot. It was just a lot to go through. We had a bunch of folks, by the way. This was reunion weekend at Duke. I know multiple people from the class of '85 who were doing, I guess, their 50th. Am I getting that math right?
40th.
Yeah, 40th, whatever it was. Yeah, doing their 40th. A bunch of class of 2000 folks who were doing their 25th. Class of 2000 folks. I had multiple people send us photos, pictures from their watch party. They said that when the camera at the very end of the game, there was a moment. I don't know why they did this, but there was a moment where the camera lingered on Chris Carrawell on the Duke bench. I thought that maybe the announcers would say something about it.
They were talking about the fact that he had been, he missed out on 2001. He was on the 90. They were talking about the 99 team. They said the one guy on the squad, they had Avery, and then they talked about him, about how he missed out again in 2001, but then was able to get as a coach. Or I'm sorry, he missed out on being it. He came just after 2015. So this is going to be his chance to get his first title. And so they were focusing on him and the fact that he had been part of the program for so long. And I forgot who it was. Briefly, it was yeah, he's probably going to get a coaching job at some point. But for now, Chris Carrawell is enjoying this moment, which damn right he should. He's been around the block, man. He deserves it.
Yeah, the class of 2000 folks that emailed us said there was a huge roar through their watch party when they showed Sewell on the screen, because he is, of course, a member of the class of 2000. Donald, with that, let's get to the headlines. I will start by apologizing to all the people who wrote really, really good stuff that didn't make the cut, because the cut was really high. I have about 6 or 7 of them. I will start with Herschel Patel, who gave us the Crimson Tried. And then he said, Cameron Evans, my dog Cameron, smiles down on his dominant Devils. Thank you, Herschel. By the way, I keep on getting emails from people who talk about how touched they were by the words I spoke about my dog Cameron passing this past week. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
He's got 2 more games to be guardian angel, so we're going to keep it going for him. Paula Anderson, I love this one because it takes me back to the days. She wrote, Sears going out of business sale. Duke cleans out the hardware.
Yes, I had that one on my list, so my list is now one shorter. I'll give you another Sears one. Dave Jordan gave us Sears goes bankrupt as Duke targets another Final Four. A lot of retail establishment humor in there from Dave Jordan.
Target on Sears crime and this DBR podcast. Who would have thought? Jason Beer wrote, Duke reminds Bama the only place Tide belongs is in a washing machine. Devils roll all to San Antonio for the Final Four.
That was a really good one. That was another one I had identified. I'll go for some alliteration then. Scott Sauer gave us Together Team trounces Tide through tight teamwork. Scott managed to give us a 7-word headline where every single one of them started with a T. Once again, Together Team trounces Tide through tight teamwork. Nice job, Scott. And I love the fact that he calls this the Together Team, because that is what they are.
See, I took 2 of yours. You took 1 of mine. This is going very easy, Jason. We're on the same wavelength. John Hodge. I have John Hodge, and he wrote, Roll darn Blue Devils. Duke smothers Bama by 20, shuts down Sears, and storms the Final Four in San Antonio after Tide runs out of buckets.
John Grantland. John, as always. I mean, John just brings it. I know we say I think we probably read a John Grantland headline
like once a week. Yeah. It's like, it's not sometimes we have to switch it up, but it's like once a week.
John, but it's because he brings the quality. Here we go. Here's John's. Newark is no sweet home Alabama, while Duke rolls to the Final Four. Very nicely done, John.
Loved it. Ross Payless, he said a pronunciation of his name, so thank you for that. Ross wrote, Duke locks up Sears in the Alabama Slammer for life. And Jason, I talked about it a little bit last night in the Reacts, but my play of the game is when Sears was thrown in jail by the rest of the Duke defense.
Yeah, I think that's my play of the game as well. Let's see if we pick the same play.
Uh-huh.
My last headline, and then I got a couple rhyming ones. The last headline was Chris Berry. I love the short ones. I love the ones that are just like, a couple words. Chris Berry sent us this headline. Special.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to say. Special.
And Jason, the last one that I have on this list is from Adam Keene. And he didn't write a headline. He just informed us of what the best headline was. And he said the best headline was written on the shirts that the Duke players were wearing at the end of the game. Ready for more.
Very nice. All right, so here are my rhyming ones. We had a bunch of rhyming ones. And we had someone who sent us like an 8-verse song.
No, Jason. He sent a rap to Baby Got Back. If you did not recognize that in the very first line,
I did. Yeah.
It was a little
not rapping
close.
Baby Got Back, but it was.
I had to recite it because I don't do the limericks and all those because those take a lot of time. But raps I'm always here for. That one was just a little bit off. Right, we had a couple that so I had to leave it on the edit room floor. But well done with the rhyming.
Yeah, but so the ones that made the cut, Mark Slavic, Duke is still rolling, dominates with D. Bama couldn't hang with the best from the ACC. I like that, Mark. And then Dave Piccolo, who, by the way, sent a very cute photo. He was at the game with his girlfriend, wife, whatever that, some nice lady who was standing next to him. But Dave sent this one. They said Alabama's offense would be best. For Duke, it would surely be a test. And I'll admit, I was stressed. But common dunks and Alabama clunks, that helped me to rest. Very nicely done, David. You made the cut, and that will do it for our headlines, limericks, and other silly stuff at the beginning of the podcast.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
All right, let's get to the game. Let's get to the good. Donald, I'm going to start just with a few of the stats and observations about how dominating Duke was in this game, because even though it felt close, this was a dominating performance by the Duke Blue Devils. Bama never led in this game. The game was never tied unless you count the opening 10 seconds until Cooper hit a three. And Duke led throughout after that. At the 17:08 mark of the first half, less than 3 minutes into the game, Tyrese Proctor hit a three-pointer to give Duke a 6-point lead. For the rest of the game, Bama would never get within 4 points. They never got it down to a one-possession game. The rest of the way, they never even got it under 6 points in the entire second half. I mean, sure, it hovered between like 7 and 11 for most of the second half, like until the under 8 media timeout when Duke then ran away. But Bama never was able to string together enough stops or enough quality offensive possessions to truly threaten the Duke Blue Devils. And Duke is now within just a whisker of the magical Ken Pomeroy efficiency number of plus 40 that only the 1999 Duke team has ever achieved. No matter what happens next, this Duke team will go down as one of the best teams of the modern college basketball era. That's written in stone. And I think that what comes next is not going to be a disappointment. This team looks to be unbelievable.
Jason, I also would like to note that they asked John Shire a question about the Prudential Center and it being a host for future games. And he said, yeah, it's great. He kind of gave some canned answer, but there's a little bit to that story because Duke is undefeated in the state of New Jersey in the NCAA tournament. They moved to 12-0 yesterday. So more games in Jersey, I say, because we do pretty well in them.
Yeah. By the way, Emmanuel Dildy, I thought this was really funny. He said, speaking of Jersey, he said, I didn't even get to see what Jersey looks like because we spent the whole time in ballrooms, in rooms, working on team meetings, working on coaching meetings, working on scouting. These guys are, it may look easy on the floor. It is hard work to be as good as this. Let's continue in the good. And the next thing I want to talk about is our defense. The fastest team in all of college basketball had a shot clock violation on their opening possession. I mean, I don't know what odds you could have gotten on that in Vegas, but oh my God, that was a sign of things to come as Duke holds Alabama to just 25% from three. We had a hand in their face on every damn shot. We forced them. Did you notice how many like 25 footers, 28 footers Alabama was forced to take because they couldn't get open close to where they wanted to be?
Yeah, I was gonna say there was a definitely plays where they would drive down, be Sears or even like Youngblood would drive into the lane and they'd look up and they'd see a 7'2" Malawach. They go, "Hey, the guy that's 35 feet from the basket has a much better shot than I do 4 feet from the basket. So let's go back out there, right?" And they hit a couple of them, right? They hit a couple that were close to the March Madness logo, and you kind of were just like, okay, fine. If you're gonna shoot those all day, I'll take those percentages. And
Well, yeah, that's how
gets,
you shoot 25%. You're going to get one out of every four of those, but we'll take you shoot 25% from three. You're not going to win the game against this Duke team.
and we were winning the long rebounds. I think that was the key. It wasn't necessarily the offensive rebounds. They had 10 of them, which is, not great, but it's fine, right? I'll take that number. But the fact that we were able to get the long rebounds because they were shooting long threes. If you think about how Tyrese Proctor was covering up the lane, Man was jumping in the air for some of those, right? Some of them didn't make it to the free throw line because he went and snatched them. Cooper Flagg snatched a couple, had some man rebounds, but the long rebounds were what sealed it because that's where you get the offensive rebounds that they would then put you out of position as they drive in the lane and then get a better shot. But we were able to snuff those out. We won the rebounding battle by 11, and it's because I think of the long rebounds that were missed by Alabama, we were able to grab, and that was the end of their possession. So they couldn't use that momentum to keep them going, especially with how fast they're going. This was a faster game for us, right? It felt like it was,
but still only
pace.
73 possessions. I mean, like it wasn't for
But 73
Alabama.
is like,
It was a snail's pace.
let's say 73 is like what the second or third most possessions we've had in a basketball game this year, right? So
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah, it's up there. And so when I see that, it did not feel like that. It never felt like we were playing Alabama's pace, just like you said from the opening tip, which I think was great because when we were able to get those long rebounds off of those long three misses, we were then in a position to kind of be on the front foot and force the issue. So we did have some fast break points. We had some transition baskets, or at least be able to, get down there, see that there wasn't anything, and smartly come out and restart the offense.
By the way, you're talking about rebounds. Sion James finishes this game with 7 defensive rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
He was big. It was a team rebounding effort, but yeah, there were some guys who were just great, and we did not let those long rebounds cause problems for us. I want to talk more about the defense on specifically Mark Sears and the other Alabama guards. Mark Sears is an All-American for good reason. He's a great player. He shot 2 of 12 in this game. Just 1 of 5 from 3. He had 5 turnovers. It was incredible, the defense on him. Tyrese Proctor had like that clean interception on a pass from Mark Sears that ended up in a layup. Sears had that one time he drove the lane and Con Knipple tied him up for a jump ball. Mark Sears was unable to get anything he usually is able to get. And he couldn't. The amazing thing to me was you can go, oh, you shut off Sears from 3. Well, then he got inside. Oh, no, you shut him off inside as well. Oh, well, then he was able to pass to his teammates. So, no, he had one little flurry where he had a couple nice passes to Grant Nelson. But other than that, this was a game where Alabama never got anything easy on offense. And specifically outside the 3-point line, Sears, Holloway, and Youngblood. Those 3 guys had 21 combined 3-pointers against BYU. I mean, that's outrageous for 3 guys to hit 21 3-pointers in one game. Sears, Holloway, and Youngblood combined to shoot 3 of 16 from 3 against Duke. That's 18%. 18% from their best 3-point bombers. And on January 14th, Alabama played Ole Miss, and they only scored 64 points in that game. I don't think Alabama wasn't really focused in that game. They lost to Ole Miss. It was a bad loss for them. This is a great Alabama team that usually scores a lot. That Ole Miss game is the only game where Alabama had fewer points than they did the 65 points against Duke. This Alabama team was I mentioned on the preview, the 3rd best 2-point field goal shooting team in the country. 3rd best at 2-point field goals. They hit just 45% of their 2-point field goals against Duke. They had no answer for our length, communication, connectivity. A team that routinely scored 80, 90 points against top 10 defense. Like they played Auburn, they played Florida, both of which have top 10 defenses. And in the past couple of weeks, and Alabama put up 80, 90 points on them. They didn't even get into the upper 60s against Duke. At winning time in the second half, Alabama scored just 28 points. It is unbelievable that the Duke defense was able to do this to one of the best offensive teams in the land.
I'll tell you how they did it, and it was kind of how I was focused with this game. As you know, Jason, I was watching with some of my best friends, and we were all just kind of at a house watching. And what I noticed very early on is that between media timeouts, right? So if you break this game down into 4 minute segments between those under 12, under 16, under 8 timeouts, we won every one of them. We like, no matter if the one time Bama went on kind of a little mini run early in the first half, or I guess it was the middle of the first half, where John Shire immediately called a timeout and was like, "Hey guys, we're not focused. Let's get back into it." We ended up winning that 4 minute segment anyway. And so when you look at the 10 minute segments that Ken Palm breaks down, every single one, Duke was ahead in every single 10 minute segment. That's how you build a slow burn of a lead. That's how you win a ball game. But even again, if Bama was throwing everything at us in the second half in an effort to try and catch up, and they look up and they're still losing by more than they did the last time they sat down on the bench, that is a just momentum killer. That is a demoralizing moment. And you could tell as the game went on that they tried to speed it up because they needed the possessions to try and catch up, where we were not content with them, doing that at all. And it was very evident very late in the game when they were trying to basically drive around trying to find something, anything to go to the basket with. And the guy who had the ball, whether it was Mark Sears or somebody else, would end up running into 5 different Duke players on the same play every single time. It was a team effort, as the headline said. They were together on defense. They were talking each of things out, and even when it was there were some tense moments. When you look at the score again, they would go to some media timeout. You're like, we just increased our lead somehow.
Yeah.
That is the making of a championship basketball team.
I want to switch briefly to the offense. The defense was incredible. But I want to switch to the offense. I thought Duke was really smart and really efficient. Donald, do you know in this game, Duke only attempted 13 threes?
Yeah.
Far and away our lowest number of three-point attempts in any game on the season. Like we had,
because I think the magic number was 20, right? It was like all season we had always attempted at least 20, or maybe like 19 or something.
Well, I was going to say we had 2 games where we had 19. The regular season finale against UNC and the game against Arizona, just our previous game. We only had 19 threes in both of those games, but we're only 13 in this. And as you point out, most games Duke is closer to 25. We literally shot half as many threes as we usually do in a game. But that was because we were taking what the Alabama defense was giving us. And what they were giving us was penetrate into the lane and get shots in the paint around the back. We dominated them on points in the paint, like in a really, really big way. And if we're going to talk about that, then we have to talk about man, Common Malawach. In the NCAA tourney, in the 4 games we've played so far, man is 20 of 23 from the field. That's 87%. I mean, that's ridiculous.
And I think 2 of them were alley-oops that were either like he was fouled and he missed, or he just there was that one where he'd clanged it and went like 35 feet in the air.
Exactly.
So that's a good percentage.
His 87% field goal percentage, according to CBS Sports, is the highest field goal percentage for any player entering the Final Four since 1985. Where you have to attempt at least 20 field goals. We're not counting the guy who comes off the bench and is 2 for 2. If you've attempted at least 20 field goal attempts, as Man has, no one since 1985 has had a higher field goal percentage than 87%. And I also wanted to note something. Duke counted on him more than usual in this game. He played 31 minutes. He hadn't played more than 30 minutes in a game since early January. Duke needed him out there every second of the time. We talked last night on our recap not recap, but on our emergency reaction podcast about his intimidation factor and the fact that his 2 blocks doesn't even begin to tell the story of how great he was in this game. His ability to impact, to intimidate, to change everything Alabama was doing at the rim. I mentioned Alabama shot 45% on their 2-point field goals. That was man. That was man all the way, making life miserable for them on the inside.
Remember a couple weeks ago we talked about the fact that even I guess against Baylor, right, where kind of had butterfingers on rebounds and sometimes catching the ball. He had that one game on New Year's Eve against Virginia Tech where it felt like he could not catch a single thing, and we're like, hey, if we just kind of eliminate that, we'll be fine. If you've noticed, we are able to drive deeper into the paint before we release an alley-oop to him. We're not releasing alley-oops from, the traditional ones where someone's at the 3-point line and they're throwing it to him. There's times where we're able to get into the lane, and as we look like we're going up for a shot, we're just kind of drifting the ball a little bit further past the rim where the only one who can grab it is him to throw it down. And because of that, the defense has to make a decision quicker. And they're not making the right decision because you're either letting our guy go in for a layup or our guys have the touch inside the paint to get the ball in the air above that outstretched arm to a waiting man who's able to dunk it. So I like the fact that he's been able to grab the ball and hang on to it, because if not, that timing isn't working. There was even the one where, if you think about it, the one where Tyrese Proctor threw the ball a little bit late and behind him, and he still was able to, kind of reach back and grab it and jam it. Those things weren't happening a month ago. And that's part of the maturity, but also that's the timing. That's just the timing going, ever so quicker. The one thing where you see that timing and where it can be off, right, is Malik Brown had a couple of passes where usually he throws it on a dime. They were able to catch it and lay it in, but they weren't quite the sharp passes. And that's just because he's been out for 3 weeks, right? So you have to rebuild that, and that's what this week will be for him. But I love the fact that our guys are seeing each other. Like, backdoor passes for all of them have been great. And I think the one thing about our offense last night that was more poignant was that these guys realized that they are the tallest team in the country, and Alabama is very much not. Do you know how many times Con Knipple would back down to the lane and turn it's Mark Sears, who's 6'1", and he'd go, I'm just going to calmly dribble into 4 feet, turn around, lay off glass, goes in. Mark Sears is down here. He can't see me. I go down. That is 2 points. I go down on defense. He did that so many times. Cooper Flagg had a couple where he's like, this is the guy that is smaller than me. Lay it in. 2 points. Go down on defense. And by the way, recognizing that is great.
And at the other end of the floor, Grant Nelson sets a pick. Duke switches. Tyrese Proctor's on him, and you're like, oh, wait, actually, Tyrese can guard Grant Nelson.
Right. Like
Sion can guard Grant Nelson.
Grant Nelson turns, oh, this guy is about as tall as me. Okay, or at least can't guard me. I must pass the ball to some. Oh, nope, he has the same issue. Let's go to this. Nope, same issue.
Well, and it plays the other way. Mark Sears is like, oh, wait, I got their center on me now. Oh, wait, I can't do anything against their center either.
He's a foot taller than me. So.
But he moves his feet. He knows how to move his feet. And so he can play. Oh, yeah, it was amazing. Hey, as we continue with a little bit of offensive stuff. By the way, I wanted to note, you mentioned the Tyrese Proctor lob to Man where Man had to reach back to grab it.
Yeah.
Jimmy Jackson went on like a 5-minute rant about catch radius. I'm telling you, there are NBA scouts out there that saw that play and were just like, yeah, I'm marking him up a couple more spots in the draft. Man's going up a little bit higher.
Can't go much higher. He's already at like 3 on most draft boards. He's not getting 1. So where's he going, right?
Wait. He's not quite. I think Man's still around like 8 or so. But regardless,
we'll
get into that. We got a month.
ESPN had him at 3 a week ago. So, and their latest one, and SB Nation did as well. He is moving up a lot of draft boards with this performance in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, speaking of someone who's going to be going in the lottery, Con Knipple, who does a 21-5-5, and that did not tell the whole story, not by any stretch of the imagination. With Cooper Flagg not having it, and I'm not saying Cooper was bad, but Cooper didn't have it.
Pedestrian 16-9-3.
Yeah, right.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable, Cooper.
But regardless, We turned to Khan to initiate more than usual. By the way, remember the ACC tournament a couple weeks ago when we had to do that to win a title?
Hmm.
Yeah, Khan was more than capable with the ball in his hands, making good decisions. He got so many guys involved. He recognized, as you said, he recognized when he had the mismatch or when someone else had the mismatch. His chemistry on man-man on those pick and rolls is just like impossible. Like everyone in the country sees it coming. Oh, man-man setting a pick for Khan. Here comes the lob, and the defense is like, I see it coming. I know it's going to happen. I can't stop it though.
But he changes every single time, right? Again, there was one time he released the lob. He was like 10 feet from the basket. The next time he was like 3 feet from the basket. And the
Yeah,
time after that, he was like 6 feet from the basket. So the guy has to kind of make a decision because he's like, oh yeah, there was a time where he didn't lob and then he laid it in, right? Or just did the calm off the glass. So you have to, as a defender, it sucks because you're like, okay, I know this is going to happen. Like if I step now, he's going to do it over here. If I step back, he's just going to do it over here. And if I just guard man, he's just going to lay it in. What, like, coach, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Am I
yeah.
supposed to foul him? Oh, I can't foul him because he shoots 91% from the line. So it's terrifying if you're a defender to have to try and stop that, especially Jason, as you said, if you know it's coming and you still can't stop it.
Yeah, you're a defender and you're like, I'm about to be on the wrong end of a Sports Center top 10, but I
Something.
don't know
Yeah.
how to prevent it from happening.
Yeah, I don't know which number is going to be. I think it depends on when I move, right?
Exactly right. By the way, speaking of Khan, remember when he was supposed to be a weak link on defense? Remember the book on Khan back in the
Hmm.
fall? Oh, he's not going to be able to play Duke defense. Yeah, we can toss that book in the trash heap. Khan has such a high basketball IQ. He knows where to be on the floor, knows when to help and when to stay home. On the vicious, ridiculous man block of Mark Sears, which we will be talking about later. On that block, if you watch that play, it is Khan who rolls off his man and gets in Sears' way in the lane. Like Khan wasn't guarding Sears on that play. Khan goes to help. And that is why Mark Sears had to sort of double pump, which gave man time to volleyball spike the ball, into the next county. Khan also picks up 3 steals in this game. He seemed to be everywhere on both ends of the floor. Like every moment where you're like, I wonder what's happening on this play. Just look where Khan Knippel is because that's where the play is developing, whether on offense or defense. That's how involved he was in everything.
It was again, I think he had 3 steals. That's not counting the jump balls that he forced, right? Wait, how many? It was kind of a abnormal number of
Yeah,
jump
yeah.
balls. It was like 5 or 6 in
Well,
this
it
game.
happened on both ends. He actually had one
Yeah,
where he kind of fumbled it away. Yeah,
yeah. Or it was the pass that kind of went through, like it went through his hands and then through
yeah,
his
yeah.
legs. Yeah, okay. I'm not, we'll talk about that in the bad. It was fine. But I think forcing the issue. And again, like when you, of course, as we all know, when you get a jump ball on defense, whether you get the ball or not, whether you have the possession arrow, that's something that builds momentum. That's something that you can treat as a win on defense. And throughout this year, he's been on the floor hustling and stuff like that. But here it was, like you said, it was kind of he did a couple where he would swipe at somebody coming through the lane, and now he picked up a couple fouls doing it. But then he was also able to again get the timing down where he either got his hand on the ball or it otherwise disrupted them or distracted them from what was coming. And that the guy that was coming was man. So you would see sometimes guys go and they go, oh, I got Khan. Wait, Khan being in front of me means someone else is behind him. And they look up and they see man. They go, okay, adjust. Let me dribble back out or pass it back out and see what happens back out here. I think Khan being a force on defense through his hustle, through his tenacity, and just through his positioning. He's not beating you with the athleticism that some of the other guys on the floor are beating you with. He's beating you by being there at your spot before you get there. And that's
Yeah,
and that is positioning and that is timing and that is just all out, want to hustle to get to those spots because when you get to those spots, it breaks up any play that any of these teams may have.
If you don't have the fabulous run jump athleticism, you've got to have heart and you've got to have brains. And Con Knippel has both of those like in spades. It's super impressive. As we continue to talk about some players, how about Tyrese Proctor? 17 points on 10 shots. That's pretty damn good efficiency, if you ask me. Had a couple steals, 5 rebounds. There were several flurries, several moments in the game where you were like, "Oh, this is Tyrese's minute or couple
Hmm.
minutes," and it was a problem for Alabama because uh, when when your third option is as good as Tyrese Proctor, when the defense has to pay attention to your third option, the way they have to pay attention to, I guess he's third. Is he third? The man lob might be third, and Tyrese is
It's like
fourth. I
three.
don't
He's like
know.
3B. Man is like Cooper, Con, Man's 3A, Tyrese is 3B.
Yeah, it's like I, you heard. This is a complete side, non sequitur, side thing. In the pregame, the CBS announcing crew, not the announcing crew, but the studio crew, you heard all of them talking, and I commented to my friends Jeff Crow and Steve Douches, who were there with me. I was like, they're all like really, they seem like they are resigned to Duke winning it. They just seemed so confident that it was going to be Duke, and I'm like, I'm not as confident as they are. I think it's because, as Kenny Smith noted, this Duke team is so ridiculously deep. And again, here we are, 30 minutes into the podcast. We're finally talking about Tyrese Proctor. He had 17 points on 10 shots and
Mm.
played great defense the whole time. Uh, uh, you run out of superlatives. You really do for the team that John Shire's put together and the game, their ability to find different heroes at different moments.
This is not my play of the game, but this was a great play in the game. Early in the first half, Cooper flag comes down. I don't think it was transition, but we didn't really set up a offense. He kind of saw a three opportunity and he took it, and he missed it, and the ball kind of went to the corner, and Cooper flag beat everybody to get the offensive rebound. He grabs it and then passes it out to a trailing Tyrese Proctor, who was at the exact same spot Cooper Flag had just shot the three from. And he kind of looks at Cooper, is like, "Yeah, I got it." And he just calmly knocks it down. I
Yeah.
think he might have been at half court already talking his Aussie trash talk before the ball went in. And you turned around, they kind of did like a from the baseline type of zoom in on Proctor, and Proctor just kind of was shaking his head as if to say, like, "Yeah, you don't want that to be a problem today," and it already is. He was doing that a lot. And like you said, he wasn't the guy that they normally found, but when they found him, he would make teams pay. And I think again, also the long rebounds. He had 5 rebounds, he had
Yeah.
2 steals, he had 2 assists. This was a team effort, right? Like I don't think he'll care that we waited 30 minutes to talk about him because we kind of already have, and some of the other things that we've already talked about. But that's just how ingrained this team is, with just how cohesive it is, where 17 points feels like an afterthought. Cooper Flag having 16, 9, 3, and 1 feels like an afterthought, because there's just, it feels like everyone is primed to know, hey, if this guy's going to be cooking, let's let him cook. If it's someone else's time to cook, let's let them do it too. Everyone eats, everyone wins. And I think this team has embodied that with their play. And you could tell there's times where I'm recalling plays, Jason. I don't even remember who did them. I just know that the play was made. And I think
Yeah.
that's how they would want to be remembered, right? Like, hey, Tyrese Proctor did make that play. Duke made that play. And I think that's how they're, embracing this moment right now.
A couple other guys I wanted to mention very quickly. I mentioned earlier, Sion James had 7 rebounds, only 1 turnover in a game where Duke had some loose possessions. And by the way, his turnover was kind of an ugly one. But
Mhm.
but for Sion, there's a reason that he had a team leading plus 22 plus minus. He's just a guy who impacts winnings at both ends of the floor without necessarily getting big stats. He did end up with the second most free throws on the team in a game where Duke shot 19 of 22, 86% from the free throw line. If you're Alabama and you're like, okay, how are we going to stop this? How are we going to slow these guys down? It ain't sending them to the free throw line. That is not the answer. And I also wanted to shout out, the bench didn't do a lot, but Big Pat had that flurry with three really nice assists when he played in
Those
the first
backdoor
half.
assists, yeah.
Yeah, those backdoor assists, including that one to Isaiah Evans, is a really nice play. Like the whole
Hmm.
country's like, Isaiah Evans is in the game. Watch the 3-point line. Oh shit, Isaiah's dunking.
Yeah.
I did want to shout out C. Foss off the bench. Caleb Foster had a pretty nice game. 5 points, 3 assists in just 14 minutes, 0 turnovers. And if you'd asked me back in, January, February, when Cephas's minutes were going down, will he be Duke's leading bench minutes guy? Having nothing to do with it wasn't because of foul trouble or anything like that, because he played his way back into it. He was Duke's leading bench minutes player in this game, in an Elite Eight game. I mean, I feel like less than a month ago I was saying I think he's fallen out of the rotation completely. Not the case in an Elite Eight game. Great game, Cephas.
He had that huge three that he nailed. I think it was in somebody's face. Somebody tried to put their hand.
It was
in
at
his
a big moment too. It was a big moment. Yeah,
it was a big three. Again, the teammates trusted him with the ball, but also Jason and someone wrote in about this too. But I noticed this play. It was early in the game where we had kind of gone a couple of minutes without really making a basket, and he boxed out 2 guys to get a rebound, drove the length of the floor, and was able to work his way around a defender and hand the ball off to Cooper Flagg for a layup. It was a great sequence for him. And again, the fact that, as I mentioned, when he was having his struggles, right? Stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. This is what happens when you are ready. You rise to that occasion and make some key plays despite the fact you're not on the floor as much as the other guys. I think the idea now is the rest of the nation. We live in a bubble, right? We've been studying this team throughout this entire season. But to the people who are tuning in right now, if you told them, hey, Cephas started in the starting lineup, and they'd be like, yeah, why is he not in the starting lineup? He's really good. He plays really good when he's on the floor. It's because, of this rotation, and everyone has embraced the roles that they have. And it took a while for him to kind of work into that new role that he had. But this is the end result of it. You're having him have actual really good production for this team to help us to a Final Four.
Donald, you cool if we take a little break here and or you got anything else in the good? Go ahead.
Just real quick, just wanted to announce the All East region team because there's guys on our team.
A trio of freshmen made it.
Yes, Caleb Love, Mark Sears, Con Knipple, Common Malawach, and the MVP Cooper Flagg. Which, hey, I'm not arguing with that.
I was going to wait to mention it until we got to our player of the game, but that's fine.
Oh, okay.
You found a perfectly appropriate moment for it. But with that, we're going to take a quick break. Grab a drink, take a breath. We'll be back after the break. We're going to give you player of the game, play of the game, and we'll have a little bit of what didn't go great for Duke in this game, a little bit of the bad. All that coming at you in just a moment. All right, Duke fans, when it comes to college basketball and March Mania, one thing is for sure, nothing is for sure. Upsets, buzzer beaters, Cinderella's advancing, top seeds going home early, we hope not. It's all going to happen. Bet the unexpected every upset every day with DraftKings Sportsbook.
That's right, Jason. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, and parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. And if it's your first time using it, we got something special for you. $5 for $200 in bonus bets instantly. It is a great deal for March.
Bet the unexpected with the DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code DUKEBB. That code again, DUKEBB, for new customers to get a $200 bonus when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
So good, so good.
Get ready, because Clear the Rack is on at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through Monday, find incredible deals on wear now styles. On sale for even less at Nordstrom Rack. Take an extra 25% off red tag clearance throughout the store from brands like Adidas, Marc Jacobs, Steve Madden, and more. All sales final. The best stuff goes fast. So shop this sale at Nordstrom Rack today. Please see NordstromRack.com or ask a store associate for details.
This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was getting frustrated by your forms. Now, Taxes is uploading your forms with a snap, and a TurboTax expert will do your taxes for you. One who's backed by the latest tech, which cross-checks millions of data points for absolute accuracy, all of which makes it easy for you to get the most money back, guaranteed. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car right in your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
All right, we're back from the break. Donald and Jason, DBR podcast, as we continue to recap the big win over Alabama, 20-point victory by the Duke Blue Devils. Donald, let's start with the bad, and a guy whose name we did not mention a lot in the first half of this podcast, Cooper Flagg. Shoots just 6 of 16, had 4 turnovers. It was, like I said last night when we did our emergency reaction, I thought it was a C-plus game from him. His offensive rating, according to Ken Pomeroy, his overall statistical offensive rating was an 84. Not counting the Georgia Tech game where he got hurt, where he only played, like 10 minutes or so, and Duke struggled in those first 10 minutes. Not counting that aborted partial game by Cooper Flagg. This was Cooper's worst offensive game of the entire season. He was pretty loose on offense at times. Like, he had the 4 turnovers, but they were frankly, another 3-4 plays where he kind of lost the ball and it didn't result in a turnover, but it just wasn't the crisp kind of ball handling we usually see from him. Like I said, 6 of 16, his shot was off. He missed a number of shots in the lane. Cooper just really usually does not miss. I don't know what was going on. Maybe it was that he was, a little bit fatigued because he played a ton in the previous game. But this was a C-plus game from Cooper Flagg, and if we're being really honest, we got to put him in the bad at least a little bit.
I mean, I think the 4 turnovers, of which it felt like 3 of them were in the first 6 minutes of the ball game. So it was very early on. You kind of understood that this was not his best game. But I think also there's a lot of those shots where, again, like you said, he normally makes those layups where he kind of dribbles into the paint, makes a move one way or the other, and goes off the glass. And it felt like whether it was
all short. They were all short.
Well, it wasn't short. I'll tell you what's going on. Whether it was adrenaline or not, he kind of was a foot wider than he normally is.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And
yeah, the
so
angle wasn't what it usually is.
And so it's so the angle wasn't there. So when you throw it off of the glass, he's thinking, okay, it's bouncing off at this, point, and it's going to drop right in. But because he was a foot wider than he normally was, that felt like it goes off the rim instead of going through the basket. And so it's little small things where I looked at it and I don't know that I gave it the same criticism. It was more like, okay, he might be rushing a little too much to try and involve himself. But again, you look back, he was able to calm down. He made it, made free throws. He got rebounds. He got 9 of them.
And by the way, he was just snatching them out of the air.
Yeah, like he can affect the game in other ways. And again, I think at halftime they were kind of like, Cooper Flagg's not having his best day, but he's having a great game because he has a great team around him. And he's able, this team is able to overcome Cooper Flagg having a pedestrian 16 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block, right? Like this is what this roster was kind of built for, to withstand that. I think the one thing where and this kind of leads into one of the bigger bads that I had, is that late in the game when Alabama was pressing us, doing the full court press, we were kind of rattled at how they were doing that. We were kind of lazy with some of the passes that led to a few turnovers, or at least some
Oh man,
shaky moments.
the one that Cooper had. What happened was Cooper went up to pass it to Tyrese,
Yeah.
and Alabama jumped that passing lane. So Cooper sort of changed his mind and was going to pass it to man at half court, and he didn't
Hmm.
throw it hard enough, and Grant Nelson got the steal. John Shire,
Yeah,
man,
that's when he
Shire went
called him to calm
ballistic.
down. But I think again there was that, and you mentioned the three turnovers that I'm sorry, the three turnovers that Cooper Flag had in the first half. One of them was where he kind of turned and forgot that he had already used up his dribbles, so he dribbled
Right,
one more time,
right.
and then like three quarters of the ball was three quarters of the way to the ground. He kind of realized it, so he was like you could see him react as he started to dribble again. He's like, I already did that, didn't I? And you could see him going like, my bad, my bad. But again, these were details. And sure, we were up 20 at that point, so the details didn't matter. But again, that's the mental toughness, the mental sharpness that you're going to want for 40 minutes in the Final Four, easily able to be cleaned up. And I think next time
Yeah.
they'll react better to a full court press by another team.
Yeah, any other player in the country, literally any other player in the country gets a 16, 9, and 3, and you're like, wow, what a great game.
Mhm.
That's our standards for Cooper for right now. As we continue with the bat, I did. We've talked about it, but I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and mention it. Duke has 13 turnovers. Looked really sloppy at times. Really loose turnovers. Alabama is not a team that is known for forcing a ton of turnovers. I mean, they're good on defense. I'm not saying they're bad at it, but for Duke to turn the ball over 13 times, above my magic number of 12. It was sloppy at times. I think part of it was, sort of the pace. Part of it is the intensity of this kind of game. But and there's no way that any of us can sort of simulate in our heads the amount of pressure you feel in an Elite Eight game. I would argue that it's even more pressure. It's even more difficult than a Final Four game because you know that sort of the Final Four is such a special thing to achieve. People don't track Elite Eights the way they track Final Fours. So I think there's even more awareness sort of the moment that I'm in. And I think that can sometimes lead to some sloppiness and lead to some carelessness and also lead to more intensity on defense, which makes it harder for you on offense. But, again, Duke getting 13 turnovers is less than ideal, and as I said, a number of them were pretty loose.
Yeah, I think that was the added to that was like the loose ball fouls that we had. We had a couple of those. One, I mean, again, one I wasn't too concerned about. The other one it was like, okay, that's a cheap foul to pick up. And if you want to stay out of foul trouble, you just try to avoid those things. And I'm not as mad about them because they were in the context of trying to make a play. So you kind of do you want him to try and make the play or do you want him to not get the foul, right? That's kind of how you chalk it up to sometimes. But again, these little details we're focusing on the big prize here. Those little details are going to help us win a championship if we're able to clean them up.
Last thing I have in the bad, the officials, especially in the first half, I thought weren't the best.
I mean, Roger Ayers, who
right.
we've seen all year long, him be bad. Oh my goodness.
I don't folks know we don't like to complain about the refs a lot on this podcast. They are good and bad both ways, and I'm sure Alabama fans had a number of plays that they were frustrated at by the refs. But there was like that one play in the first half where Con Kneppel was fouled probably 3 times on a layup, and then they didn't call anything. And then on the rebound, he like sort of swiped at the ball and they called a foul on him. I was just like, really? I looked back at my text messages. I've got a few different text groups that I text stuff to, and to each group independently, I texted the following 2 words: effing refs, 3 times in the first half. And everyone knew what I was talking about when I did it. So it wasn't like it wasn't as bad as it was against Arizona, but the officiating, these are supposed to be the best refs in the game. At least they let them play a little bit more than against Arizona when they called a million and 50 fouls. But I'd love to see better refs. Can we just get better refs, please?
I mean, I'll say I didn't think the rest were that terrible. Were like to be noteworthy. And they were normal bad, if that makes sense to me. Like it wasn't overly like
Yeah,
the Arizona one was like, yo, we got to discuss this. This is a problem.
yeah. I mean, look,
But
for
this,
me, it was really just that one play with Khan where he was absolutely fouled, like I said, like three times, and then they called the
yeah,
foul on the rebound. I was like, really? What
yeah,
are we
that one,
talking about?
yeah, that was the one play out of 79 possessions,
There were
right? That
more
I
than
was really
one,
hit.
but okay.
No, no,
All right.
but my point is like it wasn't. I was not complaining about the refs. I was complaining about bad calls, but I wasn't complaining that the refs were overly bad at any point because I don't think they were, in my opinion.
All right, you ready for us to get to the play of the game?
Yep, let's do it.
Let me hear yours first.
Mine is the sequence at the end of the game where Mark Sears has the ball, and like I said, he was thrown in jail on defense. He literally ran into five different defenders on the same play, and I believe it ended with him getting an offensive foul.
Oh,
Where
on
he
On Tyrese Proctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like you could see, like even Jim Jackson, who's not doing us any favors with the commentary, once again, he was like, Mark Sears has no answer for Duke's defense on that one. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That was again, team defense led to a team play and led to the one of the best players in the country just not finding an avenue other than to bowl over one of our players in an effort to get a point.
Yeah, by the way, so that one on Mark Sears on Tyrese Proctor, that offensive foul, and the one a couple minutes earlier, Grant Nelson on Cooper Flag, on both
Hmm.
of those offensive fouls, like Sears pushed off once, the refs didn't call anything, and then he pushed off even harder. Grant Nelson pushed off a Cooper once, refs didn't call anything, and so he pushed off even harder. I was just sort of
Like
like, guys, they
even
let you
like
get away with the first one.
the replay was like his arm was like full extension,
I
like
know
a
the chicken wing
fullback,
was way out there.
like
Yeah.
a fullback, like doing a stiff arm. And the ref, you see like the ref going like, I have to call this one, Grant. Like I have to. Like it's right in front of me. What do you want me to do?
So my play of the game comes in the first half. I alluded to this earlier with 9 minutes left. Mark Sears drives the lane and man sends the ball into the next county. It was intimidation. It was focus. It was stifling defense by everybody on the Duke team. It was cutting off the head of the snake, taking their All American, their best player, and making him into a liability. That was my play of the game. And I think, but it's indicative of the entire attitude Duke had throughout the game and the way that Duke played defense throughout this entire contest. Once again, we should note that Alabama, a team that scores 90 points, a team that had scored 113 points in their previous game, scored 65 against Duke. It's just ridiculous. But in addition to that, I did want to shout out one other play.
Wait, before you do that,
Go ahead.
on
Yeah.
that play, go back and look at it. I'm 90% sure that man blocked it and then jumped. Like he blocked it and he's like, oh yeah, I had to jump to because he's a foot taller than him. So like he
Yeah.
goes up and he swats it out of bounds, and then you see his feet leave the ground and he kind of comes down like, oh yeah, I had to jump for that one. That great effort. Very, very funny.
So my backup play comes with 11 and a half minutes left in the first half. And Bama had cut it to 4. And Duke had a lot of our subs, less reliable. Not the starters are in the game. And I really thought as I was watching, I'm like, this is a big moment. Like, is this Alabama about to, really come back on it? 'Cause it was right after Coop had that bad pass turnover that gave LeBaron Filion a run out bucket. And you could feel Alabama like pushing to really get back into this game. And it was the play where Big Pat made a brilliant pass to Cephas for a driving layup. By the way, Cephas was fouled in that play. They pushed him from behind. He hit the layup anyway and didn't call anything, but it pushed the lead. It had been a 4-point lead. It pushed the lead back up to 6. On the very next play for Duke, man got a dunk. He then bothered Grant Nelson into a miss. Sion James drove the lane and got a layup. Man got a steal. Khan buried a 3. And like 2 minutes later, Duke's leading by 11 again. And Bama never really got back into it after that. But it all started with one of the most unlikely plays that you would see in a Duke basketball game. Big Pat Ngongba making a brilliant pass to Caleb Foster for a driving layup. If you had that on your bingo card, go collect a big payout.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of plays, a lot of defensive plays that you can't even chalk up who did what, but you just knew it was a team effort.
All right, player of the game. I'll go first on this one. Paul Biancardi of ESPN, who's like their recruiting and draft expert and who watches a ton of college basketball. Paul Biancardi said these words: "If Kamen Malawach stays on the court, Duke is a championship team." He starts the defense that starts Duke's offense. His ability to change and challenge shots, keeping blocks in play, drop coverage on pick and rolls. It allows Duke to be more aggressive on the ball and on the wings. The best defensive team in college basketball is the main reason. He is the main reason why Duke is the best defensive team in college basketball, said Paul Biancardi. He said, but let's not forget his offensive ability with putback rebounds and lobs. I agree with Paul Biancardi. Kamen Malawach was the player of the game. He affected things at both ends of the floor remarkably. Like, for a guy who, the ball was probably in his hands on offense for a total of 10 seconds in this game because he doesn't hold it for very long before he slam dunks it. But the gravity that I talk sometimes on this podcast about gravity, the gravity that Man has on the floor in terms of being around the play in the lane, whether it's on offense or defense, is something that other teams just don't seem to have an answer for. And I thought this was... He played 31 minutes. It may have been his best offensive game. It may have been his best defensive game. It almost certainly was his best defensive game against the best offensive team one of the best offensive teams in the country. So man's my player of the game.
I think that's great. I am going with the guy who gave him the ball in several possessions. I'm going with Con Knipple.
No argument.
You don't get a 25-5 in my house and not be rewarded for it. So, and again, 3 steals on top of that. So I again, what you said about Man, the same could be said about Cooper Flagg. It could be said about Con Knipple. It could be said about Tyrese Proctor. It could be said about Big Pat, right? Like, there's a lot of guys here who, Sion James, it could be said about him as well. But Con really affected the game on both ends of the floor. And I think his poise, like you said, and being able to bring the ball up the floor and initiate the offense at times was key in us building a lead and us keeping it.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap it up here. Almost at a full hour here on the DBR podcast. We will be in your feed a lot over the next several days. We haven't figured out all the planning. We got to preview whoever Duke's going to be playing in the Final Four. We got to talk to some of the best experts in the country on Duke basketball about what they've seen from this team and what they expect to see as we get to San Antonio. We got to figure out getting Donald a ticket so that he's got his plane ticket. Now he needs his game ticket. And we want to hear from all of you. dbrpodcast@gmail.com. There has, by the way, never been a better time to like and subscribe to the DBR podcast. The download numbers are blowing up, Donald, because there are more and more people checking us out. And join the DBR family, folks. Download, subscribe, send us emails, all that other jazz. He's Donald. I'm Jason. We have loved spending the run with all of you, and the run ain't done. On to San Antonio. Here's the Duke band playing us out and taking us home.